Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed, the podcast where we dive into the highs, lows, and did that really just happen moment of parenting teens and young adults. We're Carrie and Jessica, parent coaches, mythbusters, and occasional referees in the battle of hormones versus common sense.
If you've ever wondered, is this just happening to me? You're not alone. We are here to help you with real talk, expert advice, and hopefully a few laughs along the way. Need more support? We also offer private coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements because sometimes even parents don't have all the answers.
So continue listening as we tackle this parenting journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Jess.
So I just want to take a minute before we start our conversation today. At the heart of our podcast, we try to create a space for real stories from real people. Today's episode centers on a mom sharing her journey of parenting a transgender daughter. It is our intention that our conversation is rooted in love and support, with our goal being to provide information and education for our listeners. With that being said, we would like to welcome today's guest, Paige. Hi, Paige. Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity, particularly in our culture and community and country right now regarding transgender individuals. So thank you.
We're so happy that you're with us to join us and help educate us and share your own journey.
I'm happy to. It's a privilege, really.
So, can you take us back to the beginning? Was there a time that you realized that your child may have been questioning their gender identity?
Oh, yes. And, what I'll say is that Chloe was very gender nonconforming from
Hmm.
the age of 2.5.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so, what I'll tell you is everything that we consider stereotypically femme and feminine was my kid, our child, from the very beginning. So, everything was pink and princesses and dress up and high heels. This goes way, way back. So, we've had a very, very consistent non conforming gender expression from early on.
Okay. Can I
Now,
just stop you for 1 second?
yes, please.
At birth, your child was assigned male gender. Is that
Male
correct?
male at birth,
Okay.
and just what I want y'all to know is I will refer to her as Chloe the entire time because for me, I'll be really honest, I don't we honestly believe we never had a son. We always felt like we had a child with the wrong genitalia. I do not believe that is the case for all transgender people. I don't.
Mhm.
I do know that for ours, it was, to me, very obvious from a very, very young age. So I will always refer to her as her and try to help the audience hear that there was pre-social transition, after transition. I'll try to make it clear, the timelines. Um,
Okay, great. And
oh,
if you could
so
also, as you're going through this,
yeah,
some of our listeners might not be knowledgeable on the terms that you're using.
absolutely.
So if we
Yes.
can just touch on those a
Yes.
little bit also,
Yeah.
that would be terrific.
Yeah. Chloe was assigned male at birth. What I'll say about language, y'all know this, it's forever evolving. And we
Yeah.
don't have to be, as parents, experts. I encourage everybody to not feel the pressure to be an expert and to say just the right thing all the time. Just be open to a revision or correction,
Yes.
because language is always evolving.
Right. And I think
Um,
it's also important for our listeners to just be compassionate in your speech. And you can say, I'm so
yeah,
sorry, I don't know the right way to say this.
right. Exactly. We're all human. The more pressure it is to be an expert, the more stress you feel as a parent. I can tell
Yeah,
you that.
for
So,
Yeah.
sure.
yeah, no
Yeah.
worries. But I will define if I use a certain term, I'm happy to explain where I'm coming from because we have our own language. You meet families, um, their stories are very uniquely theirs and very different. So I'll tell you the pivotal moments when we certainly stopped joking around or discussing having a gay son to knowing that we weren't talking about sexual orientation. We were talking about gender identity,
Okay.
meaning sexual orientation is who you're attracted to. And gender identity is who you are, how you see yourself.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so at 6 years old, um, it was my child coming home from school and wanting to put on girl clothes just to sit around the house, do homework, play. And that was very different for me than dress up. It was just dressing.
Hmm.
And that was one of the minutes that I thought, wow, I don't think we're talking about sexuality. And
Hmm.
so I was lucky enough to have a very close friend who worked in the mental health space of transgender adults. And she looked at me and said, it's time to go buy your child some age appropriate 6, 7-year-old girl clothes. And so the next pivotal moment was bringing home this wardrobe and experiencing from Chloe this incredible freedom and joy that only a 6-year-old can show, and that you don't see from cisgender children. You don't cisgender meaning they're born in the body they're supposed to be born in.
Okay.
So you don't see that. And she looked at me and said, "Thank you so much, mommy." And I got the biggest hug of my life. That's when I just looked at my 6, 7-year-old and said, if you could go to school tomorrow as a girl, would you? And she said, nope. And I said, why not? And she said, because I'll get teased and bullied. I said,
Hmm.
okay, if you could go to school tomorrow as a girl and not get teased and bullied, would you do that? And she didn't even pause. Yep, I would. And then I looked at her, not knowing at all where this was going to lead. I said, your dad and I can and will make that happen for you.
Wow,
So I
That's
let the
pretty
tail wag
powerful.
the dog. Yes.
Right. So I'm
Yeah.
how did you even begin to know where to start on that journey of having your
Yeah.
daughter accepted by her peers?
Mhm. So here is here is one of the very valuable things I'll share from personal experience. Um, I am lucky enough to be very extroverted, very vocal, very social. And so from a very young age, when my kid was what we call gender queer, meaning not behaving, acting, preferring things that were stereotypically masculine, my kid was always different. And I made sure that we had allies from very beginning in preschool, in the school system, in family and friendships. I made sure I didn't apologize. I would just say, look, Johnny's, very femme. Johnny likes to play dolls and dress up and make up and dance. And, so I made sure that by the time we knew this was a transgender child, we already had the allies and the friendships in the gender nonconformity space. And so I'm a big believer in putting it out there and expecting people to rise to that occasion. And there's ways to set people up to know that it's going to be okay. So
Yeah.
from a very early place, we made sure that she had the playmates that were accepting and the parents that were willing to be present and celebrate and engage. It's just very important early allyship. Doesn't whether your kid is transgender or gender nonconforming or genderqueer or non-binary, however they show up, just like any child, they need allies and relationships with people who embrace them exactly how they show up.
In terms of medical professionals, you said
Oh,
you had support, you had a team. Did your pediatrician support what you were doing, or did you have to go out and seek a different doctor?
okay. So here's where the medical piece comes in. And I think this is where people panic. This is where parents panic. This is where the country panics. It is absolutely essential that you find gender affirming, knowledgeable, competent medical professionals with this area of expertise. And there are plenty out there. They are available. What I'll say is, I didn't use our pediatrician to lead only because I was capable of that myself. Just so your listeners know, I am a retired therapist who's practiced for 30 plus years. And so while this was not an area of my expertise, I had some network that
Mhm.
was helpful. What I'll say is one resource leads to another resource. Your pediatrician is a great person to start with. They do not themselves need to be experts.
Okay.
We consulted with a specialist. They happened to be an endocrinologist who had been working with trans adults and children for many, many, many years. And that name was given to us by another professional in town. And so we consulted before we needed his uh interventions because you want to get an established relationship, and we wanted to check him out and make
Sure.
sure that he had the experience we were looking for and could lead us medically. And the medical piece doesn't come in randomly. It comes in based on lab values and blood work and medical expertise. And you're not the one that's solely making this decision. You shouldn't be. You should be
Right.
working with your medical team. So again, we are not doing surgery on children. That's just
Right.
not happening
Right.
in
Right.
spite of what people want to believe. Or
Misconceptions that are
Yeah.
out there.
it's a huge misconception. We have the ability to block puberty, to give families and individuals time and the kids time. And that, again, those decisions are made with a competent treatment team. It's medical science, and these
Right.
meds have been
I
around
think what
forever and ever and ever.
it's not that your child wakes up one day and says, "Oh, I think I'm in the wrong body," and the parents say, "Okay,
Right.
Let's
it's
do
Let's
not
something about it.
something."
Yeah.
right.
Right.
No,
I
not if you're
imagine
no,
I
no,
imagine, and
no.
correct me if I'm wrong, Paige, but I imagine that while you see these fem behaviors from your child, you and your husband are behind the scenes having all of these discussions. This is where I think we're going. Let's get our team in place now.
100%. While Chloe's dad and I have been divorced a long time, we divorced when she was 4.5. We have always raised her together, supported each other around, even when she was teeny tiny, around her being genderqueer. I mean, she would, be in a tutu throwing a baseball with him. And I mean, this was our life, and we always went to the appointments together, and she was always a part of them as well. And so, yes, pediatricians are a great place to start. Our pediatrician was a senior, but I'll tell you the truth. I asked him outright, is Chloe the first trans child that
Mm,
you have, quote, treated? And she was.
mm.
Wow.
As
Okay.
far as he knew, she
Mm.
was. So that was fascinating to me. As old school as he was so open. He has a wicked sense of humor, which we do as well. So your listeners need to know, do not lose your humor. Don't lose it. Embrace it. Hold on to it. Sick jokes help me get through things.
Chloe ever waver
That's a
in her
great question.
in her feelings about her gender identity?
This is our story. I'm going to emphasize that again. She didn't waver for even half a second.
Mm.
That is not everyone's story.
Mhm.
In my opinion and experience, we are very fortunate because there was never an oh shit, we're maybe barking up the wrong tree. We may be going in a direction that she's going to want to reverse. There was never, ever, ever a wavering. And I've spoken to many parents and many families where there have been a lot of wavering and uncertainty and that creates a lot of fear and distress,
Mhm.
particularly when you're talking about more permanent physical change, which happens puberty and beyond. We were very fortunate in that. And dealing with wavering is really a challenge for parents because we are terrified most that they're going to make the wrong decisions.
Mm.
The thing about that though is I talked to a parent of a boy and he was just very genderqueer and they were panicking about how open they should be to him being transgender and what they should do. And I said, nothing. There is nothing. He's not asking for
Mm.
anything
Mhm.
different. He isn't looking to transition in any way. Just don't get on that roller coaster ride. You
Mhm.
know, your job at this point is to provide support and open communication. That's it.
So what I feel like what you're saying is let your child lead,
To some
follow
extent, yes.
to some extent, yes. I also imagine it
Yes.
has to deal with the age where this
Right.
conversation starts.
Correct. And so here's the thing. I explain to parents a lot that all you are doing at a certain stage is consulting with professionals. You're just because you go see the specialist, the endocrinologist, the therapist, doesn't mean your child is going to transition socially or medically.
Hmm.
It's a consultation. You need the information. Seek information that's in the present, and then you make choices and decisions. So it's not the tail wagging the dog. You know, just
Got
because
it.
you're getting a consultation doesn't mean that you're agreeing to your kid being on hormone blockers. It's
Mhm.
getting the information, knowing your child. I hope that
Sure,
makes
it
sense.
does. However, I am curious though, if we could
Yes,
just backtrack a little bit.
please.
When Chloe was 6 or 7 and you had the conversation with her, if you could go to
Yes,
school tomorrow and not be
yes.
bullied, would you? And she said yes immediately. Was it the
Yeah.
next day for you, or did you wait
Oh,
till the
no.
next school year, or
Uh,
how did that
we were
happen?
yeah, we were very methodical because we could be. Our particular child was not the kind of child who said, "I will not go to school tomorrow if I can't go dressed like a girl."
Okay.
Mhm. And I was grateful for that because what I've learned is being able to prepare,
Yes.
especially a school system, a school itself, administrators is ideal. What we did is we sought out a therapy specialist. It happened to have been a remote therapist um, outside of our state to engage us in education and
Mm.
help us, make some decisions. We took the summer before her fourth grade year. We knew in third grade definitively where we
Okay.
were going to head, that she was in fact transgender and what we were going to do. We spent that summer preparing, meaning we came up with a date with Chloe when she would socially present as a female. She chose her name. We did not change it legally right away. We went to a conference in Philadelphia called the Transgender Health Conference. It is a free conference to attend aside from hotel and transportation. We met amazing families, amazing kids, and we then met with principal who always knew that Chloe was very nonconforming. I have nothing but incredible things to say about her. We sat down with her. She insisted that Chloe sit down with her. She hand selected teachers, but she did that for every student.
Okay.
So she was an exceptional principal. Unfortunately, not all families are in schools
Mhm.
where the
Sure.
administrators are confident, competent, common sense. She was and is. She became a model across the state because of Chloe and our
How lucky for
family.
you guys to have her in your
Like
corner.
next level lucky, fortunate because I've heard so many
Yeah.
other stories. And
How old is Chloe now, and how long ago
ah,
was this taking
yeah,
place?
she is soon to be 21, living
Oh,
her
That's
best life. And so I will tell you the transgender conversation started when she was 6 years
okay.
old. Her social transition, what I mean by social transition, she presented to the world as a girl in 4th grade.
Okay.
and
We
with
knew in
her
3rd grade.
girl, her new girl name, feminine.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And this is adorable. I am not saying this is what everyone should do because, by all means, you have to have created a community. My friend suggested we do a coming out party
Mhm.
at a local park, introduce her as Chloe to her 4th grade class, the whole 4th grade in the
Okay.
school. And we did. We invited teachers, administrators, and about 50 people showed up. It
Wow.
was epic. It
In
was beautiful. It was meaningful. It was so they could see her before school started.
what a beautiful idea,
Mhm.
and
Oh, it was brilliant. I did not think of it. So
That's
now,
that's why
now,
you have resources and support,
that's
right?
why, yes, good
Did
friends.
you did you prepare Chloe, was she seeing a therapist at
Yes,
this time? Did you prepare her
yes.
for any negativity, or did you not wanna put that
Mhm.
in the picture and just deal with things as they came?
Listen, you can try to be Pollyanna all you want. Our kids are so savvy. They're such old souls. A lot of these trans kids have had internal worlds around this for so long.
Mm,
I'm convinced she had an internal world of knowing way before it was spoken, and they are savvy. Any fear that I had mirrored her own. She
mhm,
had her own. There was no holding back conversation. Again, you have to know your child. Some kids are wired a lot more high strung, a lot more anxious, a lot more fear based. It was not appropriate for me to take my concerns and fears and puke them out on her. I needed to be present for her concerns. And at that age, it's bullying. I'm going to get teased. I'm going to get tormented.
sure.
I'm going to have kids be mean to me. And I'll tell you, at that age, 4th grade, there was so much humor. Weren't you a boy last year? I mean, just hilarious things like that. Um,
And what would she say to that?
yep, I was.
Mm,
And then it would just move on.
okay.
Um, then and she always had a great group of friends that were girls. Her preference was to play with girls and be around girls. Always. It was
Mhm,
never to be hang out and that was another sign is she
right.
never wanted to hang with the dudes. She always wanted to be with the girls
But Paige,
unless it
right
was
there,
yeah.
what you said, it's so important when you said keeping your sense of humor. And when
Ugh.
a child approached her and said, "Weren't you a boy last year?"
Yeah.
If she was taught differently to be offended by everything that was said,
Yes.
it would have
Oh,
made I imagine it would have made her
harder.
journey so much more difficult.
So much harder. So much harder. Like, laugh at yourself. One of her friends was like, "I should have seen that coming." I mean, that's hilarious. I
Right.
mean, one of her friends said, "You're a different kind of boy." I mean,
Hmm.
kids are so savvy and
Yep.
smart. And when she was still living as a male, she had a Barbie birthday party. And
Mm.
all these little girls were so happy to show up. And, our kids are so much cooler than we are. They are I'm not saying the torture, the bullying, all that. It got a lot harder in middle school, only in terms of, when boys would have crushes on her and then they'd find out.
Mm.
And so it gets a little trickier. The conversations about you in middle school and the conversations about you and your transgender identity, which is just not something she ever wanted. But she came, I mean, look, there was no choice but to be very public
Mhm.
about her social transition. The reason I use the word social transition, by the way, is because social transition for kids pre-puberty, all that means is they're presenting in the world in their chosen identity, right?
Yeah.
Gender identity. Nothing medical is happening.
Did Chloe use the puberty blockers?
Our medical decisions were made with an incredible
Yep.
specialist based on lab work that says that she is in the proper stage of pre-puberty
Okay.
and to block male puberty. And then, based on another set of labs, is when you introduce a hormone. And for a trans female, that's estradiol.
Okay.
And so, that again, I'm not, don't ever want to come across that medical decisions and medical interventions are easy. They are not. Again, that's why you seek competent, incredibly good doctors and you trust your gut and you ask around and you get good recommendations and good therapists who specializes. Now, I'm a therapist, but let me tell you something. We're not all created equal in this space. You need specialists, not just any therapist. You need somebody who works, if you have a young child, you need somebody who works with young transgender or gender nonconforming kids. And there are plenty of them. And you go to psychologytoday.com and you type in the criteria, you go to your P flag, get recommendations. Once you find a resource, it leads to many more.
Okay. So
Did you find a support group for yourself or your family during
Yeah.
this time? And
It
was
was
that
so
helpful?
interesting. Yeah, that's a great it was so interesting because there was an actual support group that was just starting in our smallish community that was helpful for, a certain period of time. And then we moved on from it and it sort of disbanded, but it was super helpful initially. Now, what I'll say is PFLAG in your local community usually always has support groups, and you can find local support groups simply by Googling and by going on genderspectrum.org.
Yeah.
Tons of resources, and I mean next level. Um,
Okay. We'll definitely
so
put
project
okay.
um
I
dot org.
.org. Okay.
Yeah.
I am curious about something, and I know this is a huge controversy right now. You had mentioned that
What is it?
you had mentioned that your daughter was playing catch with her dad while wearing a tutu.
Yeah,
Did sports
yeah.
ever play a role in her life at another time? And did you run
Oh,
into how she would play?
all I can tell you is we got in right under the gun. Chloe has and again, there are a lot of jokes about trans kids in sports in terms of, yeah, many of them would rather be gaming. And, this is statistically, uh, there just aren't a lot of elite athletes that are transgender. Okay. So
Right.
it's just been blown up. But yes, she was always extremely athletic and physically adept and competent. And we very much entered the world of sports from a very young age. Pre social transition, she was a tumbling trampoline athlete. And then, right at the edge of social transition, she was still competing. And we made a decision to tell the coaches and the teammates, and the kids were so hilarious. They were so cool. They made up a neutral name for her when she was competing, quote, as a boy, but socially she was living as a girl,
Hmm.
but she was wrapping up her sport. And we had no issues at that point. Now, when it became an issue is when all those sports ban bills were proposed in legislatures all over the country, trying to ban transgender kids from participating in sports in schools, club teams, faith based teams. Those legislators wrote the bills in a way where it almost made it impossible for your average little kid who wanted to kick around a ball to play sports at all.
How old was Chloe at this point?
She was 16 when she spoke to the legislature. The plan was not for her to speak. She is not a public speaker. She has no interests in advocacy work and in being a poster child for transgender issues.
Okay.
But she could not sit, as she said, and listen to these 70-year-old white men call her a man one more time. That was a
Mm.
quote. So she got the courage to stand up there and speak. And it was powerful. Um, it was incredibly powerful. I spoke as well. And the bill didn't pass, but they've all passed since.
Okay.
And worse, all of them have passed all over the country. And so, it's an incredible marketing campaign based on a lot of misinformation. I mean, there's so few transgender people,
It is.
much less
Right.
trans athletes,
Yes.
much less elite trans athletes. Now that all these laws have passed, parents are dealing with a very different world. And it is case by case figuring out what sports spaces are good for your kid, what sports spaces won't out them. Because a lot of these kids you wouldn't know. And some of these sports organizations, in order for your child to participate, are demanding they're outed. And I would not make that decision for my child. If
Right.
outing is a prerequisite to participation, I'm about finding another avenue.
Sure.
But again, family by family,
Mhm.
case by case. Look, we knew she loved to play. That's all she wanted to do.
Right.
She was as good as some, better than some, not as good as others. And we weren't looking for elite athleticism. She then shifted from tennis to volleyball, and that became the love of her life all through high school. She played on club teams, competitive club teams. We traveled. What I'll tell you about that space, nobody knew.
Hmm.
And we, one, decided to out her with only the coaches, and I would never do it again. I wouldn't do it
You
again.
mean if you had that to do over again, you
If
would
I
not
had
have
it to
outed
do
her?
over again, they insisted that we, quote, register with the National Volleyball League. They did not handle us with respect and the care that we deserve. Um, they demand we expected them to demand labs and medical records, but what I expected is that they do their due diligence,
Hmm.
and when I called with that expectation that I'm not just gonna fax this, not knowing who's looking, who's seeing, who's reviewing, um, they put their lawyer on the phone.
Huh.
I mean, really, we're talking about a kid. We're not talking about an elite athlete who's looking to compete in the Olympics. We are willing to give medical records. What we're not willing to do is fax them to some anonymous person.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know,
Understandable.
you as a parent protect and advocate for your child and push the pause button. I can't say that that's going to be the case for everybody. Times have changed. Our kids are targeted now. And sports, I talked to a friend who's dealing with this with her 10-year-old daughter. She had to switch swim leagues. She just found a different swim league that didn't have the same demands. Um, and she switched some sports over the period of time. It's not as easy to navigate now.
Did you ever face the question of her physical appearance? Well, maybe it's an unfair advantage because she's taller, or maybe it's an unfair advantage because she's stronger. Did you ever come across those?
Oh, gosh. So, yes, what people think privately and what they'll say to me may be different things.
Sure.
And I certainly engaged in a lot of those conversations, not all from people who were coming at me with judgment or hostility, but some, yes. Some want to engage in that biology argument. And, again, I come from this place where I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as full fairness in sports. I mean, if you can pay for your kid to have private lessons to learn how to tumble, how is that not an advantage? It's really usually the parents that are struggling more than the kids with
Mhm.
participation in sports.
So, can you talk to us about safety and boundaries for your daughter
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
high school to now, present day? Are they different? Or are they the same? And how do you have those conversations? What do they sound like?
They definitely vary and shift and change over age, stage, and development, and over knowing really how your kid is wired and made. So I will tell you that I am a very direct, open, no conversation is inappropriate kind of parent. And I know when you have a transgender child, you are talking about things very early on that you may not with a kid who's, cisgender. Um, but I just find it extremely important. So, yes, safety, boy, at 7 years old, 8 years old at this transgender health conference, safety was a major conversation and discussion because the violence against transgender people in this country is intense.
Yeah.
Um, and not to mention being gay, but the violence is a real thing. Um, and it is even more pronounced now. And so, from a very young age, we as parents are having conversations about um, even something like using preferred pronouns and names. And the way that people get on board the quickest is when they understand that misgendering and misnaming a person in public is potentially unsafe, they hop on board real quick.
Hmm.
Again, the safety issues and safety concerns for parents, now are very different because now there are laws on that are proposed that parents who support transgender kids are abusers. And so there are actual laws that are getting proposed that we would be arrested for child abuse if we support our child in a social transition. Don't get me started on all the
No, I know.
No,
legislation and
Yes.
no.
laws because you can drown in that misery. But I'll say that as dating comes into play, that is when I have lost sleep. I'm not going to lie. When she moved away in a very urban area, I was literally psychotic for like a month. I
Mm.
was unhinged. I had to take Life 360 off my phone and let her dad have it because I was stalking. And
Mm.
I could not release myself from that. We had very honest conversations about just like anybody with a kid who's dating, but this is more magnified. We talked about someone always knowing who you're with, contact information, where you're going. If you're on a date, we talk about uh, safety around being sexual, the who, what, where. Here is what I've come to. I am 59. My daughter is soon to be 21. She dates, and this is her journey to navigate.
Mhm.
I don't get to decide who she shares with,
Mhm.
when she shares, how she shares. I don't have that right. I can have all the opinions I want, but this is such a personal navigation. And she's she's figuring it out. And I'll tell you, it is not easy.
Sure.
Um, and I have to allow her to navigate this. And it, she's had heartbreak, she's had rejection, she's had no threats of violence, but she has had heartache and heartbreak and had periods where she's like, I just can't make the effort right now. I can't
Mhm.
put myself out there again. I mean, a lot of the famous transgender females talk about this, what it's like to date in that space and thinking that everyone knows you're trans, but they really don't. And then they too have gotten rejected and hurt and pain. Um, it is it's scary to me, and it always will be until she finds a person, but
Can I
she
ask
has
you,
to be able.
Paige, or when you say
Yeah,
it scares you because
yeah,
as moms, none of us want to have our kids experience any kind of heartache.
uh,
Unfortunately, we can't save them
yes,
from the heartache.
nope, nope,
It's part of all of their journeys. When
yeah,
you say that you are so scared for her, is it
yeah,
purely from a physical safety standpoint, or is it all the other mom stuff too?
it's all of it. So the most elevated fears that I have are that her life could be in danger from merely sharing with someone
Mhm.
Sure.
that she is a transgender woman.
Yep.
And that is the most extreme. This idea that somebody could perpetrate violence.
Yes.
Now, again, you have to set that foundation of choosing well, trusting your gut, um, and then you have to let them go. And then the normal stuff about having a girl out in the world
Mhm.
dating on Hinge. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like they're
Yeah.
Mhm.
all
Yes.
online dating.
For sure.
So it's the normal stuff as well.
Yeah.
Um, but 100%. And, I've had people argue, oh, that's not a thing.
Mhm.
And, certainly, yes, it is a thing.
For
Mhm.
sure it is. Yes.
And, I know in our world today, if um, a man that she dated turned on her uh, as a result of her being transgender, I can't count on the courts to see it the way they
Mhm.
should see it.
Right.
Now, does
Because
she
as
have
our president
sorry.
says, there's two genders. So I don't ever want it to get to that point.
Right.
Sure.
Does she have other friends that are transgender and a support
Yeah.
system community, or is
Yes.
she okay?
Yeah. This is so interesting. Uh, y'all have asked sort of ways in which we've supported her as time goes on. So, one of the ways that we supported her was to send her to a summer camp for transgender kids. It was life changing. She met and she had this freedom there. And it was run by the most professional, competent, capable people. And I mean, famous trans people have gone in and out of this camp and well known people. And she started that camp when she was like 9 years old. And what I can tell you is she met, to this day, one of her very best friends that they still see each other every year and hang out for a couple weeks or a week. And um, they have been each other's incredible support.
Mhm.
She does not choose, again, this is her choice. She doesn't choose to be in groups of trans folk. She does not choose to be um, part of that community in an open out way. She lives pretty much stealth, meaning that's not her trans identity is not what she leads with. Um, she does not share with people unless she chooses, and there are very few that she chooses. Because there's already tons of people who know in her life. So she's had this opportunity to get into a different space in life and very selectively choose who knows. Which unfortunately in this world right now gives me comfort, to be honest with
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
Um, but great friends, we met over the years in that space that have been incredibly helpful and supportive of her, and now she maintains this relationship all on her own. Um, and some kids need a whole community, um, and support groups and friendships and conferences and workshops, but the summer camp was just incredible.
What a great resource for you
Yeah, and
to have
and
found.
you can list that resource as well. Harbor camps, Camp Aeronautic. I'm not allowed to give the location.
Okay.
That's how serious they are
Yep.
about safety,
Yeah.
and
You have
but
given us
life-changing.
so many great resources, so we will make sure that we tag all of them in
Good.
our show notes so anyone can
Yeah.
have access
Mhm.
to them that is
Yes.
listening, or someone may refer the podcast or share it with friends and
Good.
family, so this is great.
Yes,
That
thank you,
is
and,
so
I
important.
just wanna say that, Chloe is so lucky to have had you on this journey with her because as we know, as we see in the news, as we see in our society, not everyone approaches, something like this with as an open mind as you
Mhm.
did. So, she's very lucky to have you.
Her dad and I feel equally as lucky. It's amazing how your kids can raise you to be better human beings
Mhm.
Absolutely.
than you may have been otherwise. There are so much worse things than being transgender, and my daughter will tell you that she is very grateful and very fortunate because she's met so many who have zero support, have
Mm.
been kicked out of homes. We do feel very fortunate in our family, in our faith community, in our community in general. We really are. And some families really struggle amongst themselves with one another. Um, and that is, I think, the hardest part is when families turn on each other
Mhm.
around this issue Because let's face it, if you have a healthy kid, you're a very lucky person.
Mhm. And I think that is a great way to wrap up this episode. Be thankful for what you do have.
Yes.
Paige, thank you so much for being with us today. We have so much gratitude for you for sharing your journey and Chloe's journey with us.
Absolute pleasure. Any opportunities like this, I'm so grateful because it's a hard journey for parents,
Mhm.
especially now, and it is doable. Don't lose your humor. Create your communities. Choose your families and your communities around this, and take no shit.
Thank you so much. We have
Thank
enjoyed
y'all.
this and that we have enjoyed meeting you. To all of our
Same.
listeners, thank you so much for listening. And as always, feel free to reach out on Instagram, Parent Coaches Unleashed, or by email, info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. And share this episode with a friend or family member who might benefit for listening. And as always, we are so grateful. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Jess. Thanks,
you.
Paige.
Thank you. Thanks, Paige. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. Together, we can raise the next generation of independent, capable, and compassionate young adults.
We encourage you to send us an email with questions and feedback to info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Please remember, you are not alone on this parenting journey.